Λοιπόν, χαίρετε κυρίες και κύριοι. Έχουμε ένα παράξενο επεισόδιο. Έχουμε, Μιχάλη, πρώτα για χαρά. Γεια σου, τι κάνεις?
Καλησπέρα, γεια σε όλους.
Λοιπόν, έχουμε μαζί μας, να το πω σχεδόν απροειδοποίητα, έναν παίχτη ο οποίος έχει παίξει γύρω στα 12 χρόνια στο NBA. Είναι ο κύριος Greg Kite. Mr. Kite, thank you for joining us. We are...
Oh, you're welcome. You're welcome, Ted. It's my pleasure to be here.
Okay,
and to speak to you.
I will make a short introduction in Greek and we go on. Ο οποίος λοιπόν κύριος Greg Kite έχει παίξει, όπως λέγαμε το Μιχάλη και λέγαμε ποιον βγάζουμε τώρα, ξέρω εγώ.
Ναι, έτσι.
Έχει παίξει ο άνθρωπος με όλους. Με όλους. Δεν ήταν ποτέ ο superstar. Αν δείτε και τα νούμερα του, δεν είναι πολύ μεγάλα νούμερα. Έχει παίξει βασικός στο Ορλάντο 1-2 χρονιές, εκεί το 89, 90, 91, πριν το Σακίλ δηλαδή.
Όχι, και με το Σακίλ. Όχι μόνο πριν το Σακίλ.
Βασικός.
Βασικός. Okay, ωραία. Και 2 φορές πρωταθλητής του NBA, έτσι.
Λοιπόν, 2 φορές πρωταθλητής NBA. Το 84 και το 86 με Larry Bird, με Πάρις και ιστορίες για κοχώνες, όχι αστεία, λοιπόν.
Έτσι.
Mr. Kite, I don't know if you can hear us. I know you are on the road, driving.
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay, so...
I can hear you, but my Greek is not very good.
Okay. We go on. I was speaking with Michalis, my partner here earlier, and we were talking about how rich your career is. Okay, so you have played more than 600 games in the NBA. You have started more than 220 games or something like that. Tell me.
Sorry, Thanasis. You played in the league during the golden years, our favorite.
Yes, our favorite years.
You coexisted with many legends as opponents, as teammates, from Robert Parrish to Reggie Miller.
Yes. So tell us, which was the hardest working from all these guys? Was it Larry Bird? Was it Shaq or Reggie Miller? Who was the hardest working?
That's very difficult to say. I think that many players who play at that level and play for a long time are very hardworking. Obviously, there's some who are more talented than others. Everybody at that level, of course, in the NBA has good talent. But Larry Bird was certainly a very hard worker in games, on the court, at practice. I wasn't around him much during the summer, the off season, but some of my teammates like Rick Carlisle spent time with him, and they worked out very, very hard in the summer and even during the season. We would have a game at the Boston Garden, and he would come up and shoot several hundred shots in the afternoon, 3 hours before the game, and go run for 2 miles, 2,000 meters or so. So he was a very hard worker. Reggie Miller, I played at the end of my career. I was in Los Angeles a little bit in some off seasons early in my career. He was out there working very, very hard. So, and even non-superstars, I had to work very hard just to be able to, stay in the league for 12 years. So I think it comes, when you talk about working hard, it comes with being a professional and being professional attitude about it. I mean, there are certainly some players who get in the NBA or in the top leagues in Europe, and maybe they're not so professional about it. They don't put in the extra work or take care of their body and get their rest and things like that. And usually it doesn't last as long for them. So, I think about a guy like John Stockton and Karl Malone. They played 18, 19 years, something like that.
Yes.
And missed very few games. And that didn't come just because of good luck. It came because of hard work.
Tell me what your feelings were when you were drafted by the Boston Celtics. There was already this rivalry between the Lakers and the Celtics. It had begun some years earlier, and of course during the Bill Russell era, but you were a young guy inside of a rivalry. How did that work for you? Was that motivating? Was that frightening, perhaps, in the beginning?
No, it was very exciting to be part of that. Of course, you know, the Celtics and the Lakers were the most celebrated and the most successful franchises in the NBA. And when I got drafted by the Celtics, it was Larry Bird had been with them for, I think, for 3 or 4 seasons, and they already had Robert Parrish and Kevin McHale, who were Hall of Fame. They ended up in the Hall of Fame as well. And the year I got drafted in 1983, they actually traded a backup center, Rick Roby, to the Phoenix Suns for Dennis Johnson, who also became a Hall of Famer. Mm-hmm. And Boston needed a backup center, so they used that to draft me. And then one of my college teammates who had a very successful NBA career, Danny Ainge, who still works
in Brigham Young.
Yes, Danny and I played together in college for 2 years. So he had already been with the Celtics for 2 years. So I was very happy to join the Celtics and have a friend and former teammate in Danny there. So it was a fantastic opportunity. And of course, it landed in the middle of, we went to the NBA Finals 4 years in a row, yes, which has only been done 4 times in history. We were only the second team to do it. The Warriors went 5 times a few years ago with Steph Curry and Klay Thompson, but
yes,
and it was during those peak of the Magic Johnson, Larry Bird years, which kind of helped to change the course for the NBA. You know, that followed by Michael Jordan on their heels, helped to take the NBA from a pro league that had a lot of issues and weren't always on primetime television, even during the playoffs, to a worldwide following and helped to grow. So it was really a privilege to be part of that, and it wasn't intimidating. I was excited to be a part of that, and it was a thrill to be part of that, and even to play just a small role in those championship teams.
So you agree that before this Magic and Bird era, the NBA was not so fun to watch?
Absolutely.
It was probably fun to watch, and it was good. It was good basketball, great basketball players, but it didn't capture the public's attention like it did. You know, you had great players in the 60s and 70s from Bill Russell and Wilt Chamberlain and Willis Reed and Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, Elgin Baylor, you name it, many others. But even until about 1980 or 81, like the NBA Finals were not shown live on television in the U.S. Most of the games were tape delayed. Mm-hmm. And there had also been in the NBA during the 70s a lot of drug problems. It just was that didn't have the same following that it had in the U.S. that it had in that NFL football or professional baseball had. And so it was probably the 3rd or 4th most popular team sport. And but Magic, you know, Larry and Magic played in the college championship, the NCAA championship game in 1979, which is still the highest rated, highest most watched college basketball game of all time.
Yes.
And
about 70%, I think.
Yeah, so I was a high school senior that year, went on to be a college freshman the next year, and of course Magic went on the next year, or next year or two. Larry went on to the NBA. Magic went to the Lakers. They won a championship his rookie year. Larry won the championship, and the Celtics won in 1981.
Played as a center.
Played as a center, yeah, in the final game, and you know, Magic brought his personality. Larry had his, you know, just his charismatic play and the way people follow them. So once the Celtics and the Lakers were able to match up in the finals in '83 and 3 out of the 4 years in '84, 85, and '87, that really changed the way that the network television and worldwide audience started to watch the NBA. Of course, Julius Erving was still near the end of his career, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, and then Michael Jordan came to, in the league in the mid '80s, and by the 1990s, he was winning championships, and had David Stern, the commissioner of the NBA, who had great vision and took the game worldwide. Yes. I think a big step worldwide too was the Barcelona Olympics.
Bravo,
with the Dream Team.
Yes.
I think by that point, there had always been great basketball in Greece and Italy and Yugoslavia and some other parts of the world, but a lot of the international players, because of the FIBA rules and because of the Iron Curtain and the Soviet bloc and things like that, wouldn't come to the U.S. to play in the NBA because they would lose their amateur status. They couldn't play on their national teams. And so I think for the early years when I was in the NBA, there were maybe, 5 to 10 international players. Now there's well over 100. And so that worldwide globalization of the game and opening up that Olympic amateur status to professionals, I think really changed basketball worldwide and the NBA to make it a worldwide game.
Who was the toughest, not the best, the toughest European opponent you have ever played against?
I didn't really have to guard him or anything, and it was a short career, but just watching him play, the most incredible was Drazen Petrovic. Mm-hmm. He was, he was a phenomenal player, very skilled, very talented, definitely a Hall of Famer. I only got to play briefly a couple times against Sabonis, but it was when Sabonis was, he didn't come to Portland Trailblazers till he was 31, 32.
31 years old, yes.
31,
yes.
Yeah,
and had injuries, and Arvydas was definitely, when he was at his peak in Europe, he was NBA or not, he may have been the best player in the world. And so those two guys stand out, but other guys who had long careers, and I think he also set a tone, was Sarunas Marciulionis, who played with the
Warriors.
Golden State Warriors.
And Mitch Richmond in the 90s. He made a big difference. But like I said, we didn't really have this floodgate. I mean, we had some players who were not born in the U.S. but then played in college. Of course, like Patrick Ewing was born in Jamaica, I think, and Akeem Olajuwon in Nigeria, but he came to college here in the U.S. And so those were kind of the it's probably the top international players, but then to have the players that came straight from Europe, got to play against Tony Kukoc a little bit. And, but I wasn't in the years with Yao Ming, and certainly not in the years with Giannis
and the others, yes.
And the great players we're seeing now, or even, I can't think of who's the point guard from France?
Tony Parker.
Played with Tony Parker.
Tony Parker.
A lot of great players like that who've come in the league since I've been in.
Tell me something. Where did you enjoy playing the most? I mean, in Boston, you had a certain situation. You were a role player, but in Orlando, you played much more. You were a starter for 2 years or something.
I enjoyed playing every week.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No. I was going to ask, what does feel better, playing in a winning team, winning titles, or a team not so good but playing as a starter? What is better for a guy? You were 30 years old in Orlando.
Yes, well, they were good. Both of them were good situations for me. Of course, from the competitor aspect and the team aspect, there's nothing that replaces being a champion or playing for a championship. So, like I said, even though I played a small role in there, and I think maybe the most I played in One year it was about 70 games and maybe played 8 or 10 minutes a game. You know, occasionally had a starting time when a starting role for a game or two when somebody was hurt or resting or whatever. But that was very, very satisfying. But it also, what happens when you have these championship teams, these contending teams, even these days, no matter what, there's not a lot of room for young players to come in and play a lot and make mistakes. You know, once in a while, a really good team will get a very talented, high-pick rookie, but a player like me who was not necessarily a full-time starter in the NBA, you don't have a chance to go out. You know, with a bad team, you go out and have a chance to play a lot more. So that was the plus side for me when I went on from the Celtics to the LA Clippers for a year and a half, to the Sacramento Kings for a year, to the Orlando Magic for about 4 years. Is I was not with very good teams then. The Orlando Magic were getting better because we got a guy named Shaq when I was near my last couple of years there. But it gave me a chance to play a lot on those bad teams and to start. So it helped me to get better and to establish my value in the league, even if that was as an occasional starter and a backup center. And that was really important. So I enjoyed both situations. The ultimate would have been to be a player who played a lot or started on a championship team. But, you know, there's many players that go through, there's not many players that get to play 12 years. I mean, it's a small percentage, and there's many players who go through a 5, 10, 15-year career and never get to play on a championship team. So I was really blessed in that regard to have both those opportunities. But I think playing on those bad teams that didn't win as much probably helped me, because by that time, you know, by my 5th, 6th year, 7th year, it gave me a chance to get better and improve, and that was important.
Tell me something before we go to the final questions. Did you play in the crazy Scott Skiles game where he dished 30
assists?
Yes, I did. I'm pretty sure I started that game, and I didn't score a lot of points. Maybe he had 1 or 2 assists to me. But yeah, 30 is a phenomenal record, and Scott was a great teammate, a phenomenal competitor, very clever guard. I think he played in Greece or coached in Greece.
Yes, he came to Greece some years later. So
yes.
tell me, I will give you some names, and I want.
By the way, Mr. Kite, you played in one of the hottest games in the NBA history. The temperature reached the heat game. The temperature reached about 36, 37 degrees.
Yeah, in Boston.
What? Yeah, yes. in Boston. What was the atmosphere like inside?
It was very hot and humid, and it was draining for the players who played a lot. Even just sitting on the bench, I remember, you know, we all took our jackets off, and because the old Boston Garden, it didn't have any air conditioning, and that was probably about the first week of June. You know, so it was summer, and it was an unusually hot week in Boston, very hot and humid, you know, and so it really did compound that. But, you know, both teams had to play with that. So I don't look at that it was an advantage or disadvantage to one team or the other unless you thought about it, you know.
Ωραία. Θανάση, εξήγησε λίγο στον κόσμο να παίξουμε ένα παιχνιδάκι μικρό, ας πούμε.
Ναι, θα του λέμε διάφορα ονόματα από τους μεγάλους συμπαίκτες που είχε και θα μας δίνει έτσι με 3 λέξεις ένα σχόλιο. Okay, so for the last part of our podcast, we want to ask you your opinion, but it has to be 2 or 3 words only for some teammates or opponents that you had. Okay, the first is of course Larry Bird. Give us an opinion for him in 2 or 3 words.
Phenomenal competitor.
Okay. Do you have any story, by the way, with him? We know that he was the best, maybe the best trash talker in history.
He was, yes, and you can see many of those videos about it. But yes, he would often tell a player who would check in the game to guard him, he'd say, "Your coach must not like you." They'd say, "What? He sent you in to guard me?" Or he would score a couple of baskets, and he would tell the other coach, "Coach, you may want to call a timeout," you know. Or he would shoot the ball. Right before he'd shoot the ball, if the guy was bigger than him, he'd say too big. Or if he was smaller, he'd say too little. Or if he was older, he'd say too old, whatever, too short, whatever. And he would score. He was, but you know, with Larry like that and the way he talked, of course, we've all heard the things about maybe where before a timeout, he told the other team, "I'm going to catch the ball right here and shoot it in your face." And he came out and he did.
Yeah.
Or the
I will
NBA
go left. I will go left or right, and he did.
Yeah. So I think part of Larry is not a guy with a big ego, but I think, you know, you get into your mindset in a game, and I think that helped Larry get into his very competitive mindset in a game. And he loved the challenge, and he wasn't afraid to fail. But I'll tell you a fun story. We're playing the New York Knicks in Madison Square Garden, and the Knicks trainer, his name was Mike Saunders. Larry was shooting around before the game, and Mike Saunders bet Larry said, "I bet you won't bank in a 3-point shot during the game, like $5. We won't bank it in." And so there's like a minute left in the game, and Larry hasn't banked in a 3. He probably even forgot about it. But Mike Saunders caught Larry's eye and was smiling at him and waving, "I got you, you know." And it's a close game, like a 2-point game. We're behind like 2 points. Larry comes down the next strip and shoots a 3-pointer and banks it in and turns around.
Okay. I have to go on, Rasis.
Danny Ainge.
Danny Ainge. God, I use competitor with Larry, but just a very smart, very high IQ, understood the game. Understood the game, and very smart player. Very fun, lots of fun too.
Okay.
Bill
Walton.
Bill Walton was a great teammate, a winner. When he came to the Celtics, he was, 10, 12 years into his career and had had many injuries and many surgeries, but his skills with his attitude, it was phenomenal. One of the best rebounders you would ever see. One of the best passers ever.
Yes. He was very unlucky, but he had a very good career in the end. Okay.
He did. Yeah. Unfortunately, he had so many injuries and he couldn't have played more.
Michali,
σειρά μου. My favorite one, Danny Manning.
Oh, Danny Manning, yeah. Danny Manning again.
Very, very, very underrated. Very underrated.
Multi-skilled, He was 6'10", could handle the ball, pass the ball, score, defend. And I played with Danny, and then I think it was his rookie year. I was with the Clippers.
Yes.
He tore his knee, his ACL. Yeah, so never injuries again affected Danny's career, but he had a good career.
Our favorite player who came from the USA in Europe, and perhaps you had some games against him, was the late Roy Tarpley. Do you remember him? Did you play against him?
Absolutely.
What's your opinion about him?
No, Tarpley was very, very talented, one of the best rebounders, shot blockers. He played with the Dallas Mavericks on some of their good teams when he was at his peak. And Tarpley little different, but maybe a little bit like Giannis, very long, long arms. Also a little bit like Rasheed Wallace. Yes. And you don't see guys with that kind of length and athletic ability and skills very often. A very rare player.
Δώσε κανένα δύο ονόματα και να τον αφήσω.
Ωραία. Charles Oakley.
Who was that?
Charles Oakley.
Charles Oakley.
Charles Oakley. Oakley, an enforcer, a rugged guy, a protector. Yeah. Protected Ewing and Jordan, and but played very hard, very smart, knew how to use his body, played defense, get rebounds. A great NBA player.
Okay.
Finally, I don't want to irritate you, but I want to ask about Bill Laimbeer.
Θα αλλάξει και κάτι άλλο.
Μετά.
Okay. Bill Laimbeer, one of our, I'll copy what our general manager in Boston called him, the consummate provocateur. Always causing trouble. Always causing trouble. But Bill, you know, for when you look at what he did, yes, he was and he liked being the bad guy who got other people, you know, upset, but he was one of the best defensive rebounders in the league for most of his career.
Yes.
And he was a very good outside shooter. And of course he played tough body, you know, with his defense and set good screens and was very smart, very intelligent about using the getting in, trying to get into the other players' heads. You know, that's what Larry did. Larry didn't do it like Bill did, but Larry, with his talking trash, he was trying to get into the other guy's head a little bit, make him think. And sometimes it did, you know, it worked. And that same thing with Laimbeer, it worked. So he was, he certainly was a great fit and helped set that tone for those bad boys, along with Isaiah Thomas and Mahorn and the others.
That's why we say the golden era of the NBA. Tough games.
It was a great time, and it was also, you know, one of the biggest things that, and you know, gets talked about sometimes, is the rules were different. The rules were different on how physical we could play, and of course, you didn't have the analytics and shooting as many threes, 3-pointers as we did. So those have changed it a little bit, but it's still a good product. But things will change over time. You know, even the NBA, the last year thought, okay, we're getting too much where you can't even touch anybody. We need to open this up a little bit. But they had a problem back after the Jordan era in the late 90s and early 2000s that the scoring was getting very low. So they changed the rules to open up the offense a little bit.
Michali,
also, you know, the influence of the European game, you know, Mike D'Antoni brought it back from coaching in Europe and others, and then the European players where there was more spread the floor and pass and perimeter and more outside shooting and just making sense of the 3-point line was good. But I wish there was a good mix, you know, more and more. We don't have right now as many good low post players as we did during that golden era. And, but that's hard to find, but that's a good combination, a good low post game with some good outside 3-point shooting.
Michali, τελευταίο δικό σου.
Okay, I will give you a last name. I have to ask about him, about an excellent, talented player, Reggie Lewis.
Yes, Reggie. Yeah, I did play with Reggie his rookie year in Boston, and yes, Reggie, very talented. About 6'7", about 2 meters tall, I guess, and could play the guard, big guard, and very unfortunate. In fact, you know, with the passing away of Reggie Lewis and then Len Bias, those were two future All-Stars, maybe a Hall of Famer or two in both of them. And I think if those, you know, guys hadn't had survived and played, the Celtics would have stayed as top team for a number more years.
Yes, they were the future. They were the future. Yes, you are right.
They absolutely were. Yes. Yeah.
Okay. Mr. Kite, thank you very much. It has been a great honor thinking of what you have done in your life in the NBA. So speaking to us is a great honor. Thank you very much.
Well, you're welcome, and great to be on your podcast. Good luck with your podcast and your future shows. I hope it grows and you're able to have add a lot of enjoyment to basketball fans around the world.
Thank you very much.
Okay.
Ευχαριστούμε πάρα πολύ, κύριοι, κυρίες. Καλή συνέχεια σε ό,τι και αν κάνετε. Μιχάλη, να είσαι καλά. Σας ευχαριστώ πολύ, φίλε.
Γεια χαρά. Γεια σας.
Καλό βράδυ. Καλό βράδυ.